Welcome to this deep dive. Today, we're looking closely at something former President Trump said recently. It's about tariffs and what he claims he told people during the 2024 campaign.
That's right. He was in an interview with ABC News, and he basically asserted that he'd warned Americans all along, warned them about a, quote, transition period linked to his tariff plans.
The transition period. Okay.
Yeah. And our mission here is really just to see if that recent claim squares with, what was actually said back on the campaign trail.
Got it. So in this interview just the other day, he stated, and I think the quote was something like, I said all of these things during my campaign. I said, you're going to have a transition period. He was talking about potential economic bumps from tariffs.
Right. And, well, the interesting thing is how that sounds compared to his actual message in 2024. Back then, looking at the record, his talk about tariffs was almost reliably glowing. Really positive.
Glowing and warning-free, you'd say.
Pretty much. Yeah, warning-free seems accurate. He was suggesting tariffs would make Americans, quote, so rich and that there wouldn't be a cost to you, that kind of thing.
Huh. So a very different tone.
Very different. And it's not just a vague impression. Apparently, when this claim about a transition period was looked into, even the White House couldn't actually find examples of him saying that or anything like it during the campaign. Not about tariffs, not about the economy in general.
Wow, okay. So his own team couldn't back up that specific memory. That's significant.
It certainly raises questions, and it's backed up by other checks, too. CNN did a review using the FactAboutOdds SE database, which is, incredibly comprehensive, tracks pretty much everything he says publicly.
Right, I know that database.
And they found, well, nothing. No instances during the 2024 campaign where he warned about a tariff transition period. The word transition pops up, sure, but it was always about other stuff. Totally unrelated context.
Okay, so the data, the actual recorded words from the campaign, they just don't show these warnings he's now recalling.
It seems that way. Now, the White House did offer something. They pointed to a comment he made, but it was after the election.
After. So like when he was president-elect.
Exactly, President-elect Trump. And in that comment, he did sort of acknowledge that, okay, maybe prices could go up because of tariffs, but even then, he was still saying he didn't really believe consumers would end up paying for them.
So wait, the evidence they gave was from after he'd already won. And even then, he was still skeptical about the basic economics of who pays tariffs.
That's the situation.
Yeah. That doesn't really support the idea he warned voters during the campaign, does it?
Not really, no. It's one thing to maybe mention potential effects after you've won an election, quite another to proactively warn voters about tough times ahead as part of your pitch to get elected. They seem like different things.
Okay, but let's shift slightly. What about during his time as president? Did he ever use language like that then? About, disruptions or transitions related to tariffs?
Ah, yes. Good point. During his presidency, especially when criticism of his tariffs mounted, he did sometimes talk about temporary short-term disruption.
Okay.
And he actually did use the exact phrase transition period back in, I think it was March and April of one year, specifically responding to critiques of the tariffs.
So the phrase itself wasn't alien to him when discussing tariffs, just maybe not during the 2024 campaign.
Precisely. And that contrast is really stark. You have the more cautious language sometimes used while in office versus the relentlessly upbeat promises made during the campaign for that office.
Right. And during that 2024 campaign, the promises about inflation and tariffs were all about speed and positivity, weren't they?
Absolutely. Super optimistic.
Yeah.
In August 2024, he said, flat out, so when I win, I will immediately bring prices down.
Immediately.
Yeah. And at rallies, you heard it over and over. Starting on day one, we will end inflation and make America affordable again.
Day one. Again, that implies instant results, not a transition where things might get tricky first.
Exactly. No hint of needing time or facing adjustments. He'd say things like, wait till you see how fast we're going to get it going. We'll get the prices down, or we're going to get those prices down. We're going to get them down quickly. It all painted a picture of, well, immediate relief.
And how did he frame the tariffs themselves during that campaign, economically speaking?
Purely positive. He was asked once if tariffs would have a massive effect, and he agreed, adding it would be a massive effect, positive effect.
Well, positive effect.
And he explicitly claimed, smart tariffs will not create inflation. They will combat inflation.
Combat inflation, that's counterintuitive to how many economists see tariffs working.
It is. The standard view is that they often add to costs. But his argument, repeated often, was that the costs would fall on foreign countries, not U.S. consumers.
Despite the fact that it's U.S. importers who actually pay the duty at the border.
Right. He consistently downplayed or ignored that mechanism where importers pay and then often pass that cost along. The message was, foreigners pay, America benefits, no downside for you, no transition period needed.
It's interesting, too. Wasn't there even an ally, like Elon Musk, who talked about needing temporary hardship for spending cuts?
Yeah, that's a notable comparison. Musk, talking about potential spending cuts under Trump, used that exact phrase, temporary hardship, framing it as necessary for long-term gain.
But Trump himself didn't apply that kind of framing to his tariff plans during the campaign.
No, not according to the record we've been discussing. That concept of short-term pain for long-term gain, at least regarding tariffs, just wasn't part of his campaign message.
Okay, so wrapping this up then. When we look at the actual statements from the 2024 campaign, well, it seems pretty clear.
Yeah, the evidence just doesn't support this recent claim about having warned of a tariff transition period back then.
The rhetoric was consistently positive, focused on immediate benefits, warning-free, essentially.
That seems to be the picture, yes. Consistent optimism, promises of speed, no hint of the kind of economic adjustment or temporary difficulty that transition period implies.
Well, this has definitely been an illuminating deep dive. Comparing a recent statement to the documented record, it really shows how recollections can sometimes differ from, well, what was actually said.
It does, and maybe it leaves you, the listener, with something to think about. How much does campaign messaging consistency, or maybe inconsistency, matter? How does it shape what we expect when policies actually start getting rolled out? Something to mull over.